class to shrink and the money goes to the wealthy. And just think of what's been happening to us. Not only did the wealthy benefit from the destruction of the currency, and there was a smaller group benefiting by the government program, when the crisis came, they got the bailouts and the bad debt on those people. That can't happen in a free society. And sometimes they'll challenge you and say, oh, you want so much free enterprise that you don't want to have any regulations. I want regulations of the kind that the free market puts on you. Don't steal, don't rob, don't get benefits from the government. That way, those individuals that said they were too big to fail, guess what? They would have failed and not the middle class American people. People together because it would not be challenging. We would all accept these liberties and accept other people's lifestyles and their religious lifestyle. That to me would be just wonderful. But freedom is not an old and not a real old idea. People a lot of times will accuse and say, "Oh, you just want to go back to the dark age." They say to me, "You'd be a good candidate for the 18th century." But guess what? Tyranny, though, it's been around for thousands of years. Special interests win the game. You think in the Soviet system there wasn't a special class who benefited the most? There was always a neat little group that benefited the most, no matter how much. It just gets more uneven the more tyrannical it is, and the poorer the people get. Now we are moving in that direction, but we can reverse it. And we don't have anything new. We were given the opportunity, not a perfect document, but a darn good document. And the document, of course, it was born by the founders, would only be as good as the morality of the people.
Yeah.
Us decide what we want and use the document over the future side of the party. By having too many people in Washington that either didn't understand or care about the Constitution. That's how we got into this mess. Why is the solution only sending people there who care about it and will obey the Constitution? The importance of individual liberty is understanding that it is truly individual. What we have drifted into in the last 100 years or 70 years or so is we have hyphenated our liberties, because we belong to a group. But liberty is not hyphenated except for one thing. Individuals. Individuals have a liberty, not because you belong to a group. Certain groups lost their liberty because they belong to a group, and that was wrong. So the people shouldn't get punishment nor benefits because they belong to a particular group. But if you're an individual, you should have absolutely the same rights as everybody else. And you certainly deserve the protection of the rule of law, and then you should be protected against the government. The government should be undermined. That was the law to protect the liberty. And here they are arresting us now and saying you don't even deserve an attorney. This is not the founders also warned us that if we weren't careful, they believed in republics that were explicit. They knew what a republic was. It was representative government. It was small government. It was regional government. And they really worried a lot about democracy. And we have become careless because democracy is the perfect term. Because we go around the world dying for democracy. But democracy is the dictatorship of the 51%. Put a coalition together of 51%, and they can strip you of all your rights. The purpose of government is to protect you if you're an individual, not to have your rights taken from you. Ideas truly have consequences, and I think what's happening today, there truly is a revolution going on. It's a revolution of ideas. It's picking up the pieces where we left off 50, 70, 80, 90 years ago, picking up a good experiment that we had, the best one ever. And we can build on this. We don't have to reinvent it. And it's much different than some of the other countries. When the Soviet system left, they did not have the same tradition. We at least have had traditions of private property rights. We've had traditions of sound money and limited government. And we, unfortunately, though, have been too careless with it. This is one thing that we do is we reject the principle of private property rights. We're just renters these days. We pay a high amount of taxes. They tell us when we can use it or not use it. And truly, the property is not owned by the people. Another example of not having ownership of our lives really is the income tax. The income tax is based on the proposition that the government owns all your income. No, they don't take all your income, but they control all your income. They tell you how much you can keep, you have to jump through all the hoops, and then they will allow you to keep a certain percentage, which means they have 100% control over your income. The principle of the income tax is basically anti-liberty. And the way that it's set up. So in a true republic, the founders believed that they didn't give us the income tax. We split the having the income tax. They didn't give us the central bank. We gave that to ourselves. So we, as people, have a lot of responsibilities too. But because we were so wealthy, people thought, well, the wealth will never disappear. And more people then became more concerned about the material benefits of liberty. And it sort of invited the notion to get more goods and services. What you had to do is have more influence in Washington. So the lobbyists come in, and they run the show in the redistribution of wealth, and guess what? The defense of liberty went into the doldrums. And that has been going on for a good many years. Except it's alive and well today and growing by leaps and bounds. And the government can't deliver what they have promised. They can't deliver peace and prosperity. Only the people can do that, forcing the politicians to obey the Constitution. Yeah. We have problems, we know what they are, it's too much government, it's not enough liberty, we need our Constitution. The solutions are out there, they're available to us, and the revolution is really going on. Ideas have consequences, and I am delighted to tell you that there's a couple of groups coming together. Those who have dreamed about it, but rather have been complacent over the years because they have been disenfranchised and haven't been engaged, and they're coming back in because they feel hold things together. It's the remnant of society that always exists. They come back and they understand it, and they are coming out of the woodwork. The numbers are, difficult to measure. But we also have a whole new generation, the university students. Delivering the greatest message. There are some of my friends who don't believe in political action. They believe in education, and they do a good job, and they understand economics, and I think that's okay. People who understand that and want to dedicate their life to education, that's fine. They get very frustrated with politics. But the truth is, you do need both. You do need idealism, and you do need education. You do need an understanding of economics, and you need the academician standing up and explaining things. But ultimately, they have to be translated into a message that people understand. Because if we want these changes, people will only accept them if they know it's in their best self-interest. And liberty is in all our self-interest. Policy of peace rather than war. We need a monetary policy of protecting wealth and not the destruction of the wealth of this country. We need property rights and understanding, but we need local government. We don't need another level of government going up to the United Nations and NATO. We don't need we need to shrink the size of the federal government. We need you have perfectly ideal world and you had the liberties passed on back to the individual. It would be self-government. That would be the As long as we accept one principle and we don't force other people to try to live the way we want to live.